everyone, and this is my review for WWE Smackdown on October 19th, 2012. And basically, I'm going to go off and say Smackdown this week had some really good stuff, and also had some not so good stuff to go along with it as well. One thing that I definitely did not end up liking in the end, I wish they would have done the tag team title tournament finals tonight, considering that it would have given them a whole Raw and SmackDown to try to build more of the storyline with the winning team versus Daniel Bryan and Kane at the leading into the pay-per-view. So yes, we did get something with you did get a tag match with Rhodes Scholars. It was an okay match, pretty much built in there to help build that team up as a dominant force in some way, shape, or form. So I didn't really like the fact that they went that route, but that was definitely the route they went. Hopefully they will do something with SmackDown next week, or maybe even starting on Raw after the tournament's over with, to build that storyline a little bit more and hopefully give it a lot more emphasis going into the pay-per-view in general. One thing I definitely did end up liking was the two matches that were made right at the beginning of the show. The match with Miz and Randy Orton, it came off extremely well in my mind. I like the in-ring action that the two put on there. They put on not a fairly long match, but a decently long match. And the other thing I ended up liking at the end as well. So Miz doesn't really have a storyline right now outside of his Kofi Kingston bit. Wish they would have done a little bit more with him and Kofi Kingston. They do have that match going into Hell in a Cell. Obviously, they'll be pushing that a little bit more going into Raw and hopefully next week's SmackDown. I like the whole Alberto Del Rio and a Skybox deal. It feels very classic WWE heel type area, where they're obviously going to use his words more than having action this week. And the best way to do that was put them as far apart as possible, and that was a good way of doing it. So I definitely am not liking what they did there. I also like the Daniel Bryan Kane and Big Show Dolph Ziggler match. Thought the in-ring action once again was spot on, and it was just a fun match to watch at that point in time. Another thing I ended up liking about the show was how the Eve storyline with Teddy Long and Caitlyn and everything is forming together. They've been since they haven't done a Divas storyline in so long, they're actually kind of delaying most of everything going into. They're basically stretching out the storyline to get as much out of it as they possibly can. I like the whole aspect that Eve ends out stealing Teddy Long's idea by listening in when he was talking to Sheamus, and then of course Teddy Long finding information on the iPad and giving it to Caitlyn at that point in time to see where that portion of the storyline is going. So that was definitely a nice little tidbit there. I've actually been liking that storyline a little bit more now, and hopefully they'll probably finish it off maybe next week or in the weeks to come, to see, or not really give it a finish, but give it more of a climax. And with my last area here, I wanted to basically, it was basically a somewhat dislike area with the whole main event of the show. I like the whole aspect of doing a lumberjack match with Sheamus and Wade Barrett, having everybody around the ring. And what I did like was the initial in-ring action between Sheamus and Wade Barrett. Once again, they did a spot-on match for what was most of the match. And of course with the lumberjack areas, you have those little tidbits where the lumberjacks are trying to interfere, or one of the superstars takes out a bunch of them at one point in time. What I didn't like was just basically the finish of the match. Once again, their match ends in almost somewhat of a disappointing type of finish, though you actually get a winner this time. And I would really like to see them do a match where where you don't get that type of cluster of madness finish at that point. So hopefully they're using this for maybe a feud between the two of them after he's done with Big Show, or maybe they'll be doing something with Dolph Ziggler in that aspect, which also I ended up liking at the end there, because with that entire cluster of everything, the one thing that before I get to that thing I did like, but the thing I really didn't like, it felt very random and out of place for Kane and Daniel Bryan to just randomly show up at the end of the match versus being out there with all the lumberjacks initially. So that I didn't end up liking all that, though in some ways it was it came off as a bit random, a bit funny that they would just come out and just start waylaying on all the lumberjacks at that point. But the last little bit I did like was the whole aspect that they gave pretty much another false cash in with Dolph Ziggler. And they used that false cash in to remind Sheamus of how devastating the Big Show is with his knockout punch. Because basically, Dolph had him down, he was going to cash in, and then Big Show turns him around and knocks him out with a KO punch. And then basically reminds Sheamus, hey, look at Dolph, that's going to be you. And that was the one thing I liked. It gave another emphasis to how easily Big Show can knock people out, and emphasis to the storyline in the match with them going into Hell in a Cell. So, like I said, there was some good points to SmackDown this week. There were some bad points as well. But overall, I felt the show, it came off pretty well. It wasn't overly great. It built storyline going into the pay-per-view. And hopefully we'll see a little bit more story building between the Raw and the SmackDown next week going into the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. That's pretty much all I have for this week's on SmackDown. And I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you enjoyed it.